engagement. And now, fresh from a 2-week sold-out engagement at the Hollywood Hawaiian Hotel in Winnemucca, Nevada, the one, the only, Matt Smith.
Santa walks into a bar. He sees John Nikora. It's not even noon, and Nikora is wasted. Typical, I know. Santa walks right over. He says, "Hey, buddy, if there's not 150 fully assembled train sets on your workbench when I get back to the North Pole, your ass is in big trouble." You may know me as General Counsel and Chief Skank Inspector for Big Al's. You may also know me as the only attorney in town who requires payment of his retainer in $1 bills. You know, as I was composing my plenary remarks this year, the predominant theme that occurred to me is change. Because if nothing else, there's been a lot of change in Peoria this year. So join me, if you will, in a journey of self-discovery and personal growth. One big change that happened in Peoria County this year is cameras in the courtroom. Now there's a change that most of us never thought we'd see, right? And it's a change that now that it's here, most of us wish that we had not seen, if you know what I mean. Big winner so far seems to be Hugh Toner. Fact of the matter is you can't open a copy of the local paper without seeing Hugh's mug splashed all over everything. And I've noticed it's the same picture every time. It's Hugh sitting there at council table in his bow tie with his mouth kind of hanging open, and the same thought bubbles hanging over his head. He's saying, "Wait a minute, this son of a bitch sitting next to me did what?" And of course the answer is yes, Hugh, he did. That's why he hired you. Now Hugh is an innovator, if nothing else. He's taken this newfound fame in stride. He's actually changed his practice to account for this. Now, in addition to advising his clients of the basics, you have the right to remain silent, don't consent to a search without a proper warrant. Hugh also tells them now, if you're thinking about killing somebody, don't do a Google search for "how do I kill somebody?" Because apparently juries in Peoria County think that's incriminating. And also, if you, God forbid, do kill somebody and you get arrested, don't run right out and Google "how do I survive in prison?" That's kind of a tell, right? Give yourself a fighting chance. Go out and do a Google search for "I was framed, goddammit." See if that works. Now, all of this has actually caused Chief Judge Corey to modify the local rules of criminal procedure. There's actually a new local rule now, and I will quote it verbatim. It provides as follows. In any capital murder case, no fewer than 3 weeks prior to the commencement of trial, the lead prosecutor and defense attorney are required to meet in person for the sole purpose of identifying at least one smoking hot Lithuanian chick to testify at trial. And don't panic, because if you can't find a Lithuanian, any smoking hot chick from a former Soviet bloc country will suffice upon timely motion. Santa walks into a bar. This time, he's with Judge Lyons. Bartender says, "Hey, Santa, what can I get for you?" Santa says, "Don't worry about me. Just turn the heat down in this place before my friend here goes apeshit, okay?" Another big change in Peoria County this year is, for the first time since approximately the Johnson administration, we have a new public defender. And I mean the Andrew Johnson administration, by the way. It's true, as of I have no idea when, Joel Brown is your new public defender. And I see some looks of surprise on your faces, which is understandable because the transition went off so smoothly that if you weren't looking for it, it might have just passed you right by. But it's true, and if we've learned nothing else in life, it's that if you find a system that works perfectly well for 57 years, the first thing you should do is change it completely around. And I don't mean to get down on Joel, because sometimes change is good. Some changes are for the better. So, just to give Joel some positive energy going forward, I'd like you to think of Joel as like new Coke. I think it's going to be like that. Think of Joel as Cousin Oliver joining the cast of the Brady Bunch. I think it's going to be that kind of ratings bonanza, honestly. Think of Joel as Star Wars Episode 1, 1 minute you've got Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, and the next minute you got Jar Jar Binks bumping into furniture and shitting all over one of your fondest childhood memories. I'm an optimist. I'm always looking for the silver lining in these things. And, one silver lining is with Tim Penn moving aside, Fidel Castro does go back to being the longest serving public employee in the Western Hemisphere. So in addition to Joel Brown, maybe Joel Brown's wife, and Joel Brown's parents, there's at least one other person that's really excited about the whole thing. I was curious. I did finally ask Judge Corey. I said, Judge, what's up with the whole Joel Brown thing? And he said something interesting to me. He said, Matty Ice, that's what Judge Corey calls me. He said, Ice, I got thinking about it, and I realized, the Harlem Globetrotters win every game they play because they play the Washington Generals every night. And in that sense, I figured the least I can do for Jerry Brady is give him Joel Brown. Oh, come on. I'm not up here telling Cosby jokes, for God's sakes.
Rapist.
But if I was, it might go like this. Santa walks into a bar, sees Bill Cosby. He says, hey, the Cos, what's up? What do you want for Christmas? Next thing he knows, he wakes up in a cheap motel 3 states over. If I may break character just briefly, and indulge in a personal, serious note, there are 3 luminaries joining us tonight who are very special to me. Bob Jeanetton, Merv Pretorius, and Mick Henderson. And I thank you. And again, if I may indulge, I have very fond memories of all 3 of them. Bob, I remember for his unshakable character. Bob is a stand-up guy. Merv, I remember mostly because he taught me so much about the practice of law. And Mick, I remember mostly for the fact that he thought my name was Mike for most of the 18 years that we worked together. It's actually Matt, Mick. And I'm a human being with feelings. Santa walks into a bar. This time he sees Peoria's very own Linda Watson sitting there. Linda says, Santa, did you hear I got the lead role in this year's production of The Sound of Music? I'm playing Maria von Trapp. And Santa says, I don't give a shit, but okay. And she says, yeah, my first solo is I'm going to sing How Do You Solve a Problem Like an Uncontested Motion to Continue. They're actually amending the list of a few of her favorite things this year. It's going to include flashy jewelry, incomprehensible legal arguments, and a general lack of self-awareness. And it's interesting because this production, they've actually changed the plot somewhat. In this production, Maria von Trapp, as played by Peoria's very own Linda Watson, she does not flee into the hills at the end, which are very much alive with The Sound of Music. In fact, she stays behind to represent Rolf the Nazi in his war crime trial. And in this production, the opening scene is actually set in Nuremberg, and it consists entirely of Linda trying to lay the foundation for a business record. And the scene goes on for 3.5 hours. I have a sponsor this year, and so I need to give credit to my sponsor. My sponsor is the Jansen Law Center Players. It's the production company at the Jansen Law Center. They're actually mounting a competing production of Miracle on 34th Street this year. The miracle is that the jury deliberated for more than a half hour before returning a verdict against Jay. I know, it's cold. That's cold. Big changes in the Peoria law firm landscape this year. Goldfine and Bowles moved out of their office downtown. They are now located out on Knoxville, right across from Lou's Drive-In. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Which is interesting because now there's two things at that intersection that will make you sick to your stomach.
Oh.
You know, and to my credit, I could have counted each one of them separately. I counted them as one thing that will make you sick. Another big change this year. This year we saw the breakup of Nell and Kelly. And if you're like me, your faith in the sanctity of lifelong commitment has not been rattled like that since Kim Kardashian and Chris Humphries broke up. It was that kind of shock. And I don't mean to get down on Steve. You know, Steve just wants the same thing that the rest of us want. All of us. We want to be our own boss. We want to control our own destiny. And we want to see a giant picture of Chris Dostotch out the window every time we look outside. And for those of you who are unaware, Chris Dostotch operates what from the outside apparently is either a realty office, a hair salon, or a glamour shot studio. I'm not sure which. Santa walks into a bar. Bartender says, "Hey Santa, Merry Christmas, what can I get you?" Santa blows his head off. Just dead right there on the spot. The aforementioned Hugh Toner says to Santa later, he says, "Santa, why'd you do it?" Santa said, "You know, I figure, why wouldn't I do it? Because the 3rd District will reverse my conviction, and I'll be back on the streets by Christmas." Ready to kill again. I always like to conclude by recognizing our fine members of the judiciary. They were not immune to change this year either. Several changes to recognize. Judge Gorman retired this year, the funny one. You know, it's hard to imagine federal court without Judge Gorman. Really, it's like trying to imagine Larry, Daryl, and Daryl, but without Larry. You know, you wonder, are Daryl and Daryl going to get by? Speaking of which, this year we also saw the retirement of Judge Shore and Judge Brandt. And it reminds me of something that Judge Shadid used to always say to me back when he was on the circuit court bench. He also used to say to me, he'd say, "Matt, if those guys weren't fellow circuit judges, I would tell them what I really think about those son of a bitches." You know, one other change, I forgot to mention this in the law firm arena, and I can't believe I forgot this. And I probably forgot it because it's a secret, and this really is secret, and it can't leave this room. But my sources tell me that as we speak, the Heil firm is actually planning to move from its current office to a new location. And the new location is so secret that I'm told every Heil partner was required to sign a non-disclosure agreement contractually prohibiting them from revealing the location of their new office. It's true. And it actually reminds me of an even bigger secret that maybe the Heil people haven't heard about, and that is this. Nobody gives a shit where your new office is.
Yeah.
Unless you're building the Bat Cave, I think we're all going to find out where your new office is sooner or later, right? But I digress. Final change. Probably the biggest one of all is the return of Judge McCuskey. Judge McCuskey returns.
There's that.
Apparently that's a cheap applause line that I didn't even know was in there. But after a 20-year absence, Judge McCuskey is back. Apparently, he discovered that he has so exhausted every federal and state pension system that only options at this point were to either slum it back here in Peoria County or go work for IDOT for a couple more years. But Judge, you're still here, which is surprising given the late hour, but Shock. I want to help you out because things have changed. The legal landscape's different than it was 20 years ago when you were here last. So there's a couple of changes you need to be aware of. One, women are allowed to practice law now. And trust me, it is super hot, okay? Two, you remember last time you were here, Kevin Lyons was the state's attorney, right? Well, he's actually a fellow circuit judge now. And let me just tell you, I hope you are ready for early mornings, all-nighters, and long weekends, because there is no off button on that guy, and if you have any hope of keeping up, that's what it's going to take. And finally, you remember Judge Vespa, right? And do you remember how you used to all say, well, at least thank God his brother never went to law school? Well, you know, come to think of it, maybe there's some things that should remain secret, and we'll let you find that one out on your own, okay? So Santa walks into a bar, and that's where I'm going right now. Thank you.